We begin this hour in Washington with the latest developments on the coronavirus outbreak. Shortly after arriving from India earlier today, President Trump announced he will hold a press conference at the White House at 6 p.m. Eastern. He will discuss the current situation in the United States. The president and his administration have been criticized by Democrats over their response to the coronavirus and the risks that it poses to Americans. CBS News White House correspondent Paula Reid is joining us now from the White House with more on this. So, Paula, what are you hearing as to what we can expect from the president's remarks later today?
Vlad, I'm told by senior White House officials that the president is frustrated by the administration's inability to pump out a consistent, positive message across the board. Specifically, you have one of his economic advisors saying that this is completely contained, whereas the CDC is saying that an outbreak is pretty much inevitable. And the president is likely to be pressed on these inconsistent messages coming out of his administration. But I think what you're going to hear is him trying to get the last word, because this press conference will happen around 6 p.m. So that's after the markets close. It's also after his HHS secretary has a couple appearances on the Hill. The president wants to get the final word. He wants to end on a positive note. He wants to lay out how his administration is capably handling what could spiral into a crisis.
Paula, what are you hearing about the president's frustrations with how the market is performing and reacting to the coronavirus outbreak? Because on one hand, there is the physical risk that Americans specifically face, and on the other, there is the risk of contagion from spiraling markets. And it's not just here in the United States. We are all, as you know, interconnected. So now, with Japan reporting hundreds of infections, you've got the four of the world's top economies, representing about 27% of global GDP, scrambling to contain the virus. You've got a fifth, Germany, teetering on the brink of a recession. So it's not whether or not the virus is contained in the United States. As you point out, the CDC is saying that it's inevitable that it will grow here in the U.S. But this market risk is being felt around all economies, which thus affects the U.S. economy here.
Absolutely. And a strong economy is the centerpiece of the president's re-election strategy, which is why he is frustrated to hear anyone in his administration make suggestions or predictions that could have an adverse impact on the market. There's also a frustration within the White House. They believe, truly, this is not spin, some have actually believed that they have successfully contained this virus. They point to the fact that 14 people were infected before Congress left for its break, and that number has held. They insist that the measures they have taken have been successful, and they're not getting enough credit for that. One problem is, though, that number 14, that does not include the dozens of people who were infected on board the Diamond Princess, and the fact that the CDC says it's pretty much inevitable that there will be an outbreak, not a matter of when, but just, how soon this happens and how we'll handle it. So the president is very frustrated about anyone saying anything that will cause any turmoil within the markets, because that is so central to his bid for a re-election. It's arguably one of the things he talks about the most when talking about his accomplishments. So the market start to tumble, not only is that bad for the U.S. economy, not only is that bad for the global economy, but it's also bad news for President Trump.
Can you explain to our audience what's being sought in this proposed spending package that is meant to deal with the virus?
That's right. A White House official tells me that this is a snapshot of the most pressing needs. When they looked at what could be coming, they decided that these were the priorities, and specifically this focus on vaccines, treatment, and protective equipment. Now, Democrats argue that this is inadequate. This particular proposal, this is not enough. There's been a new proposal made by an $8.5 billion proposal made by Senator Chuck Schumer. Earlier today, the White House said they are not interested in that. They want to first start, they want to accelerate this spending package for an initial response.
And how is this differing from lawmakers on Capitol Hill on this? I mean, what the White House wants to do and what lawmakers are interested in seeing the president do?
Well, there have been some Republicans who have expressed concern about the administration's response, about the ability for certain administration officials to answer basic questions about vaccines, about how deadly the coronavirus is, basic facts having to do with preparing for any kind of outbreak here in the U.S. So some Republicans have expressed concern about the administration's ability to handle this. Not surprisingly, Democratic leaders have blasted the administration's approach to this, and they are not very impressed impressed with the $2.5 billion proposal. Again, they're pushing for something closer to $8.5 billion. And I asked a White House advisor if all of this partisan bickering, if it's making it hard to actually get something done, to actually protect the American population. They tell me they are seeking out Democrats who they believe will work with them in good faith, but they acknowledge that, yes, there is a lot of bipartisan discord, and it is difficult to get things accomplished in this atmosphere.
Separately, Paula, what are you hearing about whether or not the president watched last night's Democratic debate and if he had anything to say about it?
Oh, he had quite a bit to say about it, Vlad. He took to Twitter to blast some of his potential Democratic rivals. He ended his tweets, though, saying, "Just give me an opponent." It appears that instead of going after Biden and Bloomberg and Senator Warren, giving them each individual nicknames, insulting them individually, he appears to want to just focus on one person. He seized on what he described as a crazy and chaotic debate. He also noted one blunder that the former Vice President Joe Biden made. At one point, he suggested that 150 million people had been killed by gun violence. The president tweeted that Biden was praised, even though he, quote, said half our population was shot to death. So the president being a little snarky, a little sarcastic, criticizing his Democratic rivals there. But he had no shortage of opinions and quips on last night's debate.
Yeah, of course, he used a slur on Senator Elizabeth Warren again, but he also called her a chocker. I want to venture a guess to say that it's choker, but I could be wrong. A chocker, C-H-O-C-K-E-R.
Yes, that is your bet. It is even in quotes.
Yeah, it's in quotes. It's in quotes.
But yes, there's so much to unpack there. But clearly, he wants to take all of this ammunition and just focus on one person, which is why at the end he said, "Just give me an opponent."
Chalk and awe, Paula. Chalk and awe. Thank you as always, Paula Reid at the White House for us. We appreciate it.